Welcome to the Explainer Aspiring Pilots. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here in ground school. Today, we're putting on our flight instructor hats and getting prepped for a really comprehensive, incredibly important pre-flight walk-around. Look, whether you're aiming for your private pilot certificate or you're grinding away at that commercial rating, having a deep, intuitive understanding of your aircraft's systems and performance data, well, that's exactly what separates a good pilot from a truly great, safe one. We're going to take those complex principles of flying and make them crystal clear. Okay, let's dive right into our flight plan for today. We're starting off with aircraft limitations and V-speeds, followed by performance and weight data. After that, we'll get into the mechanics with the four-stroke engine, induction and exhaust systems, and ignition, detonation, and pre-ignition. Finally, we'll wrap it all up with aircraft oil systems. All right, Section 1, Aircraft Limitations and V-speeds. It's time to know your numbers. Memorizing your speeds is absolutely non-negotiable for any pilot in command. Let's compare two really popular training aircraft. You've got the fixed-gear Cessna 172S, and then the more complex Piper Arrow, the PA-28R201. You'll notice pretty quickly that the Arrow's numbers are generally higher across the board, but I want you to pay special attention to VX, your best angle of climb, and VY, your best rate of climb. Because the Arrow has retractable landing gear, those climb speeds actually change depending on whether your gear is tucked up or hanging down. For instance, your gear up best rate of climb in the Arrow is a brisk 90 knots, compared to just 74 in the Cessna. Now here's a classic checkride question for you. Examiners absolutely love to ask this to test your true aerodynamic intuition. Why does maneuvering speed, VMA, actually decrease as the aircraft's weight decreases? Think about that for a second. It feels totally counterintuitive that a lighter plane actually needs to be flown slower in rough air, doesn't it? Well, here's the beautiful aerodynamic logic behind it. When your airplane is light, it doesn't need to generate nearly as much lift to stay level, which means you're flying at a relatively flat, lower angle of attack. And because you're starting from that lower angle, mathematically, you are further away from the wing's critical angle of attack, the point where it stalls. So if you hit a massive gust of turbulence, that sudden upward wind dramatically spikes your angle of attack. In that scenario, we want the airplane to stall and harmlessly drop its nose before the wings bend or break. Since a lighter plane has a longer way to go before it stalls, you have to fly it slower. Flying slower ensures the gust causes a safe stall way before you ever exceed the airframe's structural load limits. Moving right along to Section 2, Performance and Weight Data. Let's talk about balancing the load. Let's step through the exact progression of a weight and balance calculation. It all starts with a basic empty weight, which includes the aircraft and any unusable fuel. Next, we add our payload, that's passengers and baggage, to get our zero fuel weight. Quick note here, the Arrow has a very strict baggage limit of 200 pounds. Then we add our usable fuel to find the ramp weight. Remember your conversions. Aviation fuel weighs exactly 6 pounds per gallon. Finally, to find our actual takeoff weight, we subtract 8 pounds of fuel just to account for starting the engine, taxiing out, and the run-up. For the Arrow, your absolute max takeoff weight is capped at 2,750 pounds. But here's the thing, physical weight is really only half the battle. We also have to calculate exactly how the atmosphere is behaving, using the formulas for pressure altitude and density altitude. A highly intuitive way to think about density altitude is that it's essentially how high the airplane feels like it's flying. It's taking pressure altitude and correcting it for non-standard temperatures. So if it's an absolute scorcher of a day, your airplane is going to perform as if it's taking off from a much, much higher elevation. So the crucial takeaway here is that hot, high, and humid conditions drastically degrade our performance. High density altitude literally means the air is less dense. For normally aspirated engines, which are engines that just breathe ambient air without a turbocharger, less dense air means less fuel can be mixed in, and that results in less engine power. Your propeller has less bite in that thin air, your engine produces less horsepower, your takeoff roll gets significantly longer, and your climb rate feels sluggish. All right, Section 3, the four-stroke engine. This is the true heart of the airplane. Let's mentally transition out of the briefing room, walk out to the hangar, and pop the cowling. Throughout aviation history, we've seen a ton of different engine configurations. The old radial engines, with their circular rows of cylinders, offered an amazing power-to-weight ratio. Then you had inline and V-type engines, which offered great small frontal areas, but they often suffered from tricky cooling issues at the rear cylinders. Today, modern trainers almost universally use the horizontally opposed configuration, just like the Lycoming IO360 sitting inside our Arrow. They always feature an even number of cylinders, they provide a remarkably high power-to-weight ratio, And their flat, compact design minimizes aerodynamic drag while allowing for fantastic air cooling. Deep inside those horizontally opposed cylinders is where the absolute magic happens, the four-stroke cycle. This is what converts chemical energy directly into mechanical energy, and it goes exactly like this. First, intake. The valve opens and the piston moves down, aggressively sucking the fuel and air mixture in. Second, compress. The piston moves back up, squeezing that mixture super tightly. Third, power. The spark plug fires, the mixture ignites, and that controlled explosion forces the piston back down, turning the crankshaft. Finally, exhaust. The exhaust valve opens and the piston rises to push out the burned gases. Suck, squeeze, bang, blow. When you visualize a cross-section of that cylinder, you've got the intake and exhaust valves up top at the cylinder head, the spark plug poised perfectly right above the combustion chamber, and the piston connected by a sturdy rod all the way down to the rotating crankshaft. This continuous, perfectly timed rotation relies on every single cylinder firing in an exact sequence just to keep that propeller spinning smoothly. Next up is Section 4, Induction and Exhaust Systems. Let's look at how the engine breathes in and out. An engine literally needs to breathe, just like we do. The induction system pulls fresh air through a filter at the very front of the cowling. If that filter ever clogs up, a spring-loaded alternate air door automatically opens so the engine keeps breathing. Now, our Piper Arrow features a Bendix-type fuel injector. This is fantastic because injecting fuel directly into the cylinders basically eliminates the risk of carburetor icing. But it does introduce a totally new challenge, vapor lock. On really hot days, the fuel can literally vaporize in the lines before it even reaches the engine, which makes hot starts pretty tricky. On the way out, the crossover exhaust system reduces back pressure, which frees up extra engine power. And hey, don't forget your leaning procedures. Keep it full rich for takeoff and climb, but as you reach higher, thinner air, you absolutely must pull that mixture knob back to lean it out and maintain smooth operation. Which brings us to Section 5, Ignition, Detonation, and Pre-ignition. It is all about the spark. So we've got our fuel and our air. Now we need the spark. Aviation engines use a brilliantly resilient ignition system powered by magnetos. Magnetos use rotating permanent magnets and copper coils to actually generate their own electrical current. What that means is the ignition is completely independent of the aircraft's battery or alternator. We use a dual ignition system, meaning 2 magnetos and 2 spark plugs per cylinder for redundancy and to guarantee a much more even, powerful fuel burn. But pay close attention here, because this is a vital safety fact. Because magnetos generate their own spark simply by rotating, if your ignition switch is left on, physically moving the propeller by hand on the ground could literally start the engine. Even if the master battery switch is totally off, you have to treat every single propeller as if it's live. Now, we need to explicitly contrast 2 major engine abnormalities that you will for sure see on your written exams: detonation and pre-ignition. Detonation is an uncontrolled, violent explosion of the fuel mixture in the cylinder, rather than a smooth, even burn. It's usually caused by overheating the engine or running your mixture excessively lean. Pre-ignition, on the flip side, is exactly what it sounds like. The mixture ignites before the spark plug is timed to fire. That's usually because a glowing piece of carbon or a cracked, hot spark plug is acting as an unintended ignition source. Both of these will cause a super dangerous loss of power and severe, catastrophic engine damage. Finally, Section 6, Aircraft Oil Systems, the true lifeblood of our engine. Let's finish up our Under the Cowling tour by talking about oil. Oil doesn't just stop metal from grinding against metal, it actually has 4 vital jobs: to lubricate, cool, clean, and seal. Think of oil viscosity kind of like comparing cold maple syrup to water. We need exactly the right thickness. If the engine overheats, the oil gets way too hot. Its viscosity drops dramatically and it starts flowing like water. When it gets that thin, it can no longer provide a protective seal, and it completely loses its ability to carry intense heat away from the cylinders. It's really interesting to compare how different planes store their oil. You've got the wet sump system on one hand. This is what you're going to find in both the Cessna 172 and the Piper Arrow. The oil just sits in a pan, or sump, directly attached to the bottom of the engine, completely relying on gravity. On the other hand, you have the dry sump system. Here, the oil is kept in a completely separate external tank and pumped in. Dry sump systems are obviously more complex, but they are absolutely essential for massive reciprocating engines or aerobatic aircraft that fly upside down, where a gravity-fed pan just simply wouldn't work. Before we wrap this up, let's look at our specific oil specs. Both of our training aircraft use a wet sump system and 15W50 viscosity oil. But take a look at the minimum safe capacities. The Cessna requires at least 5 quarts to operate safely. The Piper Arrow's Lycoming engine, amazingly enough, has a minimum safe quantity of just 2 quarts. Now, you'd practically never want to launch with it that low, but knowing these stark differences ensures you never, ever take the runway with a starved engine. Well, we've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, all the way from calculating density altitude to visualizing the inner workings of a fuel-injected horizontally opposed engine. I want to leave you with this famous aviation quote. A superior pilot uses their superior judgment to avoid situations which require the use of their superior skill. So my challenge to you is this. Will you use this deep, intuitive systems knowledge we've discussed today to make those superior judgments before you ever take the runway? Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and I'll see you in the skies.